She was born under a sky made of silver clouds, on a world where every child was measured before they were named. Strength, symmetry, speed of thought, beauty of form. These things decided a life before it even began. Her people believed harmony came from perfection, and perfection came from the body. When she was very young, before memory settled fully into her mind, something went wrong inside her nervous system. The healers called it a developmental divergence. It was spoken softly, as if the words themselves were ashamed. Her legs never responded to commands. Her lower body remained silent, distant, as if it belonged to someone else. Her family loved her, but love had limits in a society built on utility. They gave her the best chair, one that floated instead of rolled. They gave her tutors and private lessons. They spoke gently to her and never raised their voices, but when visitors came, they moved her slightly out of view. When future plans were discussed, her name appeared later, written smaller. She learned early how to watch. She watched her peers train in open halls, bodies moving in smooth patterns that looked like art. She watched their futures form. Pilots, scientists, governors, explorers. She watched how people looked at her, carefully avoiding looking too long. Pity was considered rude, but avoidance was acceptable. Marriage was not spoken of when she was young. Not openly, but she heard it in pauses. In the way conversation stopped when she entered a room. In the way her parents' eyes drifted to the windows when unions were announced for others. When she reached adulthood, the silence ended. Suitors came at first out of duty. They arrived with polite smiles and respectful words. They brought gifts that followed tradition. They asked careful questions. They stayed exactly as long as custom required. Then they left. Some sent messages later, full of apologies and formal regret. Others never contacted her again. A few quietly requested alliances with her cousins instead. No one said the reason aloud. They did not need to. Everyone understood. A partner who could not walk was seen as a long-term burden. No matter how sharp her mind was, no matter how gentle her voice sounded, her body disqualified her. Her parents tried longer than most would have. They contacted distant houses, minor families, even off-world connections. The results were the same: polite refusal. Silent rejection. Finally, the elders suggested another option. Humans. Humanity had joined the wider coalition only recently. They were strange, emotional, biologically inconsistent. Their technology was clever but inefficient. They aged quickly. They argued too much. They lacked refinement, but they accepted things others did not. The suggestion was framed as generosity, a diplomatic bridge. A symbol of unity. In private, it was clear what it really was. A solution that saved face. Her parents sat with her in the evening light when they told her. The room glowed softly, colors shifting with the sky outside. Her mother spoke first, carefully choosing each word. A human representative has agreed to a union. Her father did not look at her immediately. She felt the meaning settle slowly in her chest, not shock.
Not anger, just a quiet understanding.
So, she said calmly, I am to be sent away. Her mother reached for her hand. You are not being sent away. You are being married. To someone who had no better options, she replied. There was no argument to that. The human was a diplomat stationed at the edge of coalition space, not high-ranking, not famous, but respected enough to make the arrangement acceptable. He asked for no dowry, no political favors, no compensation for her condition. That detail confused everyone. her relatives whispered. Some were offended on her behalf. Others were suspicious. Why would a human agree so easily? What did he gain? She asked the same question in silence. The weeks before departure passed slowly. She prepared for exile, disguised as marriage. She imagined cold politeness, awkward silence, careful distance. She imagined being parked in a room and politely forgotten. The day she left, the city gathered as custom demanded, not for her really, but for the appearance of honor. Her chair lifted smoothly into the transport vessel. Her parents stood below, composed and dignified. They loved her. She knew that. But love did not change the world they lived in. As the planet shrank beneath her, she felt something unexpected. Relief. The human habitat was different from anything she had known. It was noisy, in a gentle way, filled with small sounds that never fully stopped. Air vents hummed, machines clicked, voices echoed down corridors, casual and unguarded. She expected to be met by officials. Instead, he was waiting himself. He stood when he saw her, not sharply, not ceremonially, just stood. He smiled, uncertain but warm. His posture was relaxed, his movements imperfect. His eyes met hers directly. "I'm glad you arrived safely," he said. No one had said that to her in years. The formal introductions happened quickly. Names, titles, agreements, spoken and recorded. Then the officials left, eager to return to familiar order. She waited for the silence. It did not come. He spoke to the staff, asking about schedules, access paths, temperature preferences. He listened when she answered questions instead of redirecting them to others. When they reached the living quarters, she noticed something strange. The space had already been adjusted. Paths were wide and clear. Surfaces were lowered. Control panels were within reach. Nothing was labeled as medical. Nothing looked temporary. "You changed this," she said. He nodded. "I wasn't sure what you'd need, so I tried to make it flexible. You did this before meeting me." "Yes. Why?" He paused, considering the question as if it mattered. "Because you're going to live here," he said simply. "Not stay. Not reside. Live." That night, alone in her room, she stared at the unfamiliar ceiling. Her thoughts refused to settle. Everything felt wrong in ways she could not define. There was no pity in his voice, no careful distance, no sense of obligation heavy with resentment. Just normal attention. Over the next days, she watched him as she had always watched others. Humans were expressive in strange ways. He frowned when thinking. He smiled easily. He admitted confusion without embarrassment. He asked her questions, real ones, about her interests, her ideas, her opinions. When she answered, he listened. When she spoke of her condition, he did not interrupt. He did not offer solutions or false comfort. He accepted it as information, not a flaw. Others noticed. Alien observers assigned to monitor the Union sent reports filled with confusion. The human was not acting correctly. He showed no signs of disappointment, no attempts to renegotiate terms, no effort to minimize involvement. Instead, he involved her more. He invited her into discussions, asked her thoughts during planning sessions, adjusted schedules so she could attend comfortably. Slowly, something dangerous began to form inside her. Hope! She tried to suppress it. Hope had never ended well before, but it crept in through small moments, through shared meals, through quiet conversations. Through the absence of judgment, she realized one evening that she was no longer waiting to be abandoned. And somewhere far away, on a world that valued perfect bodies above all else, no one yet understood what they had given away. The days passed in a way she was not used to. Not fast, not slow, but steady. In her old home, time had always felt heavy, as if it pressed down on her. Here, time moved forward, without reminding her of what she could not do. The human kept a routine, but it was loose. Mornings began with shared meals if she wished, or quiet space if she did not. He never assumed. He always asked. At first, she answered carefully, expecting disappointment if she said the wrong thing, but no disappointment came. One morning, she chose to eat with him. The food was simple. Not refined like her people's meals, not shaped by tradition or symbolism. It was warm and uneven, prepared by his own hands. He apologized for it before she tasted it. "I'm still learning," he said. She found that strange. Among her people, adults rarely admitted learning. Knowledge was a display of status. Here, it seemed to be shared freely.
"It is good," she said honestly. He smiled, relieved, as if her opinion truly mattered.
After breakfast, he prepared to leave for his work at the diplomatic center. She assumed this was the moment she would be left behind, settled into her room, alone for hours. Instead, he turned to her. "Would you like to come with me?" he asked. The question caught her unprepared. "There is no requirement for me to attend," she replied.
I know,
He said.
but I would like you there.
She hesitated. In her past life, public spaces had been places of quiet judgment, corridors too narrow, seats too high, conversations that paused when she approached. Here, the corridors were wide. The floors adjusted slightly under her chair, smoothing her path. People looked at her, yes, but with curiosity, not avoidance. Some smiled, some nodded. No one stared. At the center, discussions moved quickly. Multiple species spoke, sometimes over one another. Data floated in the air, shifting colors as it updated. She listened at first, silent. Absorbing patterns, she noticed things. Humans argued differently. They disagreed openly, without offense. They challenged ideas, not individuals. When wrong, they laughed or corrected themselves without shame. Other species watched them with mild discomfort. At one point, a trade route issue stalled the meeting. The projections showed imbalance, future shortages, delays that no one could fully explain. Voices grew tense, though still polite. She saw it clearly. A flaw in the assumptions, a repeating pattern no one else had questioned. She leaned slightly forward. "May I speak?" she asked quietly. The room paused. The human turned toward her immediately. "Of course," she explained, simply and carefully. She did not raise her voice. She did not demand attention. She just spoke. As she did, the projections shifted. The flaw became visible. A small error repeated across systems, magnified over time. Silence followed. Then someone adjusted the model. "It works," another delegate said, surprised. The conversation resumed, but something had changed. Eyes returned to her again and again. Not with pity, with interest. After the meeting, several people approached her. They asked questions. They wanted clarification. They listened closely to her answers. She felt something tighten in her chest. This was what she had always been able to do. Back at the living quarters, she expected him to comment on her contribution. Praise, perhaps. Or pride. He did not. Instead, he asked, "How was your day?" The simplicity of the question disarmed her. It was different, she said. "I'm glad," he replied. Over the following weeks, her presence at the center became normal. No announcement. No title change. Just quiet inclusion. She began helping more. not formally at first. She pointed out trends, asked questions others avoided, suggested alternatives when discussions circled endlessly. Humans noticed first. They invited her to planning sessions, adjusted screens to her eye level, shared information freely. They did not speak slowly to her or simplify ideas. They assumed intelligence. Other species noticed later. Reports were sent back to our homeworld, confused ones. Concerned ones. The unwanted daughter was becoming useful. Her parents received messages from distant relatives asking questions. Had her condition improved? Had humans cured her? Surely there must be some hidden technology. There was none. She remained paralyzed. Her body unchanged, but her world was expanding. One evening, she asked him something she had been holding back. "Why did you agree to this marriage?" she asked. He did not answer immediately. He thought, the way humans often did, openly and without shame. "I was told you were intelligent," he said, "and that no one else wanted you because of your condition. And that did not trouble you?" "It troubled me that it troubled them," he replied. She studied his face, searching for hidden meaning. She found none. "In human history," he continued, "we learned something the hard way. When we decide someone has no value, we lose more than we gain." "You speak as if it is a lesson you already paid for," she said. He nodded. Many times. She understood then that humans were not careless. They were cautious in a different way. Not about bodies or efficiency, but about people. As her influence grew, resistance followed. Some alien delegates began excluding her from certain discussions, not openly. Just quietly changing schedules, redirecting meetings. Humans noticed. They did not confront anyone directly. They simply moved meetings. Shared recordings. Made sure she had access anyway. The quiet support mattered more than open defense. One day, an observer from her homeworld requested a private meeting with her. The message was formal, respectful, and late. She agreed. The observer arrived with measured politeness. His eyes flicked briefly to her chair before returning to her face. "We have received reports," he said. "You appear active." "I am," she replied. "There are concerns," he continued. "Your role exceeds expectations." She almost smiled. "Is that a problem?" she asked. "It may alter perceptions." "Of whom?" "Of you," he said, "and of us." After he left, she sat quietly for a long time. For the first time, she understood that her absence had been comfortable for her people. Her return, even in reputation alone, was disruptive. That night, she watched the human work late into the evening. Papers scattered. Screens glowing softly. He looked tired, but focused. "You could rest," she said.
"So could you," he replied gently.
She realized then that she was no longer a guest. She was not an obligation. She was not a solution to someone else's problem. She was a partner. And somewhere beyond the habitat walls, beyond politics and polite discomfort, a truth was beginning to spread. Slowly, quietly, but firmly. Humans had taken what others had thrown away, and they were not giving it back. By the time the season changed on her homeworld, she no longer counted the days. Life inside the human habitat had formed a rhythm that felt natural, even though nothing about it should have been. She moved through corridors without hesitation now. People greeted her by name. They asked her opinions before meetings even began. She was no longer an observer. At first, she had worried that her usefulness would fade, that once the novelty passed, she would return to silence. But the opposite happened. The more she spoke, the more patterns she noticed. The more she noticed, the more people asked. Her mind worked best when problems were layered. Complex systems, long timelines. Human planners loved that. Where others focused on immediate balance, she focused on what happened later. Very few species thought that way. One afternoon, she sat in a shared planning space with several humans and 2 alien delegates. The discussion was about energy distribution across neutral systems. Everyone agreed the numbers worked. She did not. She waited, listened, watched the projections loop again and again. "There is a delay effect," she said softly. The room paused. "There is no shortage," one delegate replied. "The system balances itself." "Not immediately," she said. "But later," she explained slowly. "The way energy was being stored would cause small inefficiencies. Nothing dangerous, nothing dramatic. But, over time, the loss would grow." Silence followed. A human analyst adjusted the model. The numbers changed. The inefficiency appeared exactly where she said it would. One of the alien delegates looked unsettled. "That was not visible before," he said.
"It was," she replied calmly.
It was just not considered important. After the meeting, the delegate sent a message to his superiors. She knew this because humans were very bad at hiding concern. One of them mentioned it while pretending not to. "They're starting to notice you," he said lightly.
"I assumed they already had," she replied. "Yes," he admitted.
But now they're worried. She understood that worry well. On her homeworld, concern arrived long before action. People were allowed to exist quietly as long as they did not challenge the structure. The moment they did, the rules shifted. Messages from her family became more frequent. At first, they were warm, curious, asking how she was adapting, whether humans treated her well. Later, the questions changed. What was her role exactly? Was she advising or merely assisting? Was her condition improving? She answered honestly. She was advising. Her condition was unchanged. That answer seemed to confuse them more than any other. One evening, while the human prepared food, she watched him carefully. He moved with ease, not grace. He made small mistakes and corrected them without frustration. "Do you ever worry," she asked, "that this will cause problems for you?" He paused. "What part? Being associated with me," she said. "Politically." He thought about it. Really thought. "Sometimes," he said. "But then I think about what the alternative would be." "And that is?" "Doing nothing," he replied, "and pretending that's neutral." She considered that. Her people believed neutrality was the highest virtue. Humans seemed to believe it was often a disguise. As her influence grew, subtle barriers appeared. Meeting times shifted without notice. Documents arrived incomplete. Invitations came late. Never openly hostile, always polite. Humans adapted. They shared everything anyway. They adjusted schedules again. They recorded meetings. They invited her informally. One human official put it simply during a private conversation. "If they want to exclude you, they'll have to exclude us too." She felt something warm settle in her chest. She had never been defended like that before. Not openly, not casually. Defense among her people was rare and costly. Here, it seemed to come naturally. The coalition faced a growing problem soon after. Trade routes were stable, but trust was not. Smaller systems felt ignored. Larger powers felt burdened. No one was angry enough to break the peace, but everyone was frustrated enough to consider it. Discussions stalled. Committees formed. Reports circulated. Nothing changed. she saw the shape of the problem before anyone else named it. It was not logistics. It was fear. Every species was afraid of being the one that gave more than it received, afraid of appearing weak, afraid of being taken advantage of. Humans had experienced this before. In their own history, they recognized it instinctively. She was invited into a core planning group. Officially, this time. The room was smaller, fewer observers. More honesty. She listened as arguments repeated in different forms. They won't agree unless we guarantee returns. They won't accept guarantees unless we surrender control. They won't trust us unless we go first. She raised her hand slightly. What if no one goes first? She asked. They looked at her. What if, she continued, you go together, but differently? She proposed a system of shared dependency, not equal contribution, but interlocking ones. Each system would rely on another in a way that made abandonment costly, but cooperation beneficial. No threats, no enforcement. Just structure. It was risky. Very risky. Alien delegates hesitated. Humans leaned forward. It would mean trusting the system instead of controlling it. One human said. Yes, she replied, and trusting people who are not identical to you. The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, someone said, it might work. News of the proposal spread. Reaction was immediate. Some praised its elegance. Others criticized its vulnerability. Many questioned its source. Who designed this? The answer unsettled them. The paralyzed woman, married off to humans. Observers from her homeworld requested another meeting. This time, it was not polite curiosity. You are changing things, the lead observer said. Yes, she replied. You are doing so without authorization. I was never authorized to exist either, she said calmly. That ended the meeting. Her family sent a message, soon after, carefully worded, expressing concern for her well-being, suggesting that increased visibility might invite unwanted pressure. She understood the message beneath the words. Come back quietly. Or at least, stop. She did neither. The proposal was tested on a small scale, a limited region. No publicity. It worked. Efficiency improved. Trust stabilized. Smaller systems felt seen. Larger ones felt secure. The coalition took notice. So did those who had once dismissed her. One delegate confronted a human official privately. You are elevating someone who should not matter, he said. The human replied calmly, We're elevating someone who does. That sentence traveled farther than intended. She felt the shift then, a subtle change in how rooms felt when she entered. Less dismissal, more calculation. She did not enjoy it. Attention had always carried danger. One night she asked the human if he regretted anything. Only that we didn't do this sooner, he said. Even if it costs you? He shrugged. Everything costs something. She realized then that humans did not see her as a risk. They saw her as a responsibility they had already accepted. Not because she was weak, but because she was human to them, even if she was not. As systems began adopting her framework, something else changed. Quietly. Slowly. Other species began questioning their own standards. Why had they dismissed minds because of bodies? Why had efficiency mattered more than insight? What else had they ignored? Those questions had no easy answers. But they had been asked. And once asked, they could not be taken back. She sat one evening near the viewport, watching distant stars. The human joined her, carrying 2 cups of warm drink. "You know," he said, "they're going to try to claim you eventually." "I know," she replied. "Are you afraid?" She considered the question. "No," she said. "For the first time, I know where I stand." He smiled. Beyond the habitat, beyond politics and discomfort, the coalition was changing. Not loudly, not violently, but deeply. And at the center of it was someone they had once tried to hide. The coalition did not collapse. It also did not stabilize. Instead, it reached a state that made many uncomfortable. Things were changing. Systems that once depended on dominance now depended on balance. Smaller worlds had voices they never had before. Larger powers found that cooperation brought better results than control, but it also required patience. Patience was not something all species valued. At the center of this change was a system of shared dependency that no single group owned. And at the center of that system was her. She did not lead meetings. She did not issue commands. She did not appear in announcements. But her influence was everywhere. In the way plans were structured, in the way timelines stretched beyond immediate gain, in the way decisions now included those who had once been ignored. Some called it progress. Others called it dangerous. A formal request arrived one morning, marked with the seal of her homeworld. It was polite, perfectly worded, impossible to ignore. They wanted her to return. Not permanently, the message said. Only for consultation. Only to clarify misunderstandings. Only to ensure that her actions aligned with the values of her people. She read the message twice, then a third time. The human was watching her carefully. "They're not asking," he said. "No," she agreed. "They're reminding," the coalition also noticed. A senior council member requested a private discussion. The tone was neutral, but the concern beneath it was clear. "Your involvement has reached a level where it affects interspecies balance," the council member said. "That draws attention." "I did not seek attention," she replied. "No," he said. "But attention found you anyway." There was a pause. "Some fear," he continued, "that this is becoming human-led." She understood what that meant. Humans had not claimed ownership. They had not demanded authority. But they had supported her openly, and others quietly resented that support. The human diplomat spoke next. "She is not a human tool," he said calmly. "She is a coalition asset. Assets are managed," the council member replied. "She is not an asset," the human said. "She's a person." The word landed heavily in the room. That was the problem. The coalition had rules for assets, for tools, for representatives. It had no clear rules for people who refused to fit those categories. Pressure increased from many directions. Meetings became tense, questions sharpened. Suggestions were challenged not on merit, but on origin. "Who proposed this? Why does this benefit them?" "What is the long-term risk?" she answered when asked. She did not argue. She did not retreat. She had learned something from humans. You do not need to be loud to be firm. Another message arrived from her homeworld. This one less polite. It spoke of reputation, of responsibility, of correction. They offered something new this time. "Advanced medical intervention! Not a promise. Damn! A possibility. The technology existed," they said. It always had. But it was rare, expensive, and reserved for those of importance. If she returned and cooperated, they would consider it. She sat quietly after reading it. The human did not speak at first. "You could walk," he said eventually. Yes, she replied. If you want to, he added. Yes. The offer stirred something complicated inside her. Not desire exactly. Not hope. More like grief for something that had once felt impossible. But it came with conditions. She would have to step back, reduce her visibility, align herself with her people's expectations. She would have to become acceptable. The coalition learned of the offer soon after. Whispers moved faster than official channels. Some saw it as a solution. Remove the discomfort, restore the old balance. Others saw it as a test. The shared dependency system faced its first real strain when a key world hesitated to uphold its commitments, not out of malice, but fear. Fear that giving too much would leave them exposed. The system held, but barely. A full coalition review was scheduled. Attendance was mandatory. Observers flooded in. Tension filled the halls. She was invited to speak, not as a representative of any species, but as herself. The chamber was larger than any room she had entered before. Tiered seating, floating displays, hundreds of eyes. She felt no fear, only clarity. She spoke slowly. Simply, she explained the system again, but this time she explained why it worked. Because it assumes difference, she said. Because it does not require equality to function. Because it allows each of you to contribute what you can, not what you are forced to. Murmurs spread. She continued, My people believed value came from form, from symmetry, from movement. They believed weakness threatened harmony. She paused. They were wrong. The word echoed softly. Harmony does not come from removing weakness, she said. It comes from designing systems that do not break, because weakness exists. She did not accuse. She did not raise her voice. She told her story, not as tragedy. As fact, she spoke of being loved, but hidden, educated, but excluded, protected, but never trusted. She spoke of humans. They did not ask me to change, she said. They asked me to participate. Silence filled the chamber. When questions came, they were careful. What if this system fails? One delegate asked. Then we learn, she replied. And we adapt. That is what humans do, another asked. What if someone exploits it? Then they reveal themselves, she said. And we respond together. No threats, no punishments. Just accountability. The review ended without a clear decision. That unsettled everyone. Afterward, representatives from her homeworld approached her privately. Their tone was different now, less authority, more uncertainty. You are becoming symbolic, one said. She met his eyes. I have always been real, she replied. The human stood beside her, not speaking, but present. That presence mattered. The next day, a proposal circulated through the coalition. It was simple. Formal recognition of inclusive advisory roles. No physical requirements. No species bias. Access based on contribution. It was not labeled as her proposal, but everyone knew. The vote was close. Very close. When it passed quietly, without celebration, something fundamental shifted. Her homeworld sent one final message. It was short. If she returned now, the offer stood. If she did not, it would be withdrawn. She asked for time. That evening, she and the human sat near the viewport again. Stars drifted past, distant and silent. If you stay, he said, this won't get easier. I know, she replied. If you leave, he said, you might get something back. Yes. They sat in silence. Finally, she spoke. My people wanted me to walk, she said. Humans wanted me to stand. He smiled softly. I think you already are. She made her choice. She sent a message to her homeworld. Polite, calm, final. She declined. The response was silence. But the coalition did not remain silent. Other species began nominating individuals previously overlooked. Minds without status, voices without power. The system expanded, not perfectly, but honestly. And humans remained what they had always been in this story. Not saviors, just the ones who refused to look away. The coalition did not celebrate the change. There were no banners, no public speeches, no moment that history would later point to and say, this is when everything changed. Instead, the change settled slowly, like light spreading across a dark room. People adjusted. Systems adapted. And she remained where she had always been, at the center of many decisions, yet never claiming ownership of them. The message from her homeworld was never answered. Silence replaced authority, and that silence spoke clearly enough. They had expected hesitation. They had expected fear. They had not expected refusal. For a long time, she wondered if that silence would hurt. It did not. What replaced it was something she had never known before. Peace. Her days continued much as they had before, but with greater weight. New advisors joined the coalition framework, some physically limited, some socially ignored, some simply different. The shared dependency system grew more complex, more resilient. Mistakes happened. Corrections followed. Humans handled both with the same calm acceptance. One afternoon, a junior analyst approached her hesitantly after a long session. He was from a species known for physical endurance, but rigid thinking. I was told, he said carefully, that my limitations would prevent advancement. She looked at him. And now? She asked. They said, he replied, that limitation depends on context. She smiled. That had been the point all along. As months passed, something else became clear. The coalition was not just functioning differently, it was thinking differently. Conversations shifted, questions changed. Instead of asking, who was best suited by nature, they asked, who understands this problem best? Instead of asking, what do they lack, they asked, what do they bring? These questions did not erase prejudice. Nothing so simple ever could. But they weakened it. They made it less comfortable, less invisible. Humans encouraged this shift without claiming credit. When asked directly why they supported such changes, their answers varied. Because it works. Because we've tried the other way. Because ignoring people is expensive. Simple answers. Honest ones. One day, the Coalition Council invited her to formalize her position. A title, a defined role. Clear authority. She listened politely. Then she declined. I am effective because I am not above anyone, she said. Please do not fix what is working. The council hesitated, then accepted her decision. They were learning, too. Life with the humans settled into something quiet and strong. Not dramatic, not perfect. Just real, they argued sometimes. Small things, schedules, preferences, priorities. They resolved those arguments by listening. Neither assumed superiority. Neither assumed sacrifice. Visitors noticed this more than anything else. Not the systems she designed, not the policies she influenced, the partnership. A union once seen as a convenient disposal had become a model no one had predicted. Not because it was romantic, but because it was equal. One evening, she received a message from a young member of her own species. The message was private, uncertain, and clearly written in secret. "I am like you," it said. "They say I will never be useful."
Is that true? She took a long time to respond. Then she wrote back.
No, but usefulness is not the point.
You are allowed to exist first. Everything else comes later. She never learned what became of that young one. But the message was sent. And sometimes that was enough. Years passed. The coalition endured crises, not wars, not disasters, but tensions, disagreements, failures of trust. Each time the systems bent, but did not break. Each time cooperation held just long enough for adaptation. Her role became quieter over time. Others learned the patterns she had once been alone in seeing. That pleased her. She did not want to be necessary forever. One day, a human researcher asked her something unexpected. "If the technology existed," the researcher said, "no conditions, no politics, would you choose to walk?" The question was honest, not persuasive. She considered it deeply. "I don't know," she said finally.
Not because I don't want to.
But because standing was never the thing that kept me from living. That answer was recorded, shared, debated. Some did not understand it. Others did. Late one night, as stars drifted slowly past the viewport, the human sat beside her in silence. Time had added lines to his face. It had added weight to his voice. But his eyes were the same. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "What?" she replied. "Choosing this life," he said. "Choosing us." She thought of her homeworld, the silver skies, the careful order. The quiet exclusions. She thought of the coalition halls. The disagreements, the slow, imperfect progress. She thought of herself. "No," she said. "I regret that it took being unwanted to find where I belonged." He reached for her hand. She took it. The coalition eventually documented the shift in its history records, not as a revolution, not as a rebellion, but as a correction. A footnote in one archive described it simply, "When humans joined the coalition, they brought many innovations." The most disruptive was not technological, it was the refusal to discard people. She never read that footnote. She did not need to. She lived its truth every day. In the end, no one remembered her as the paralyzed girl no one wanted. They remembered her as the mind that helped them see each other. And humanity? Humanity never claimed victory. They never said we were right. They simply kept making space. And the universe, slowly and reluctantly, learned to do the same.